want to take a second as a mom to say thank you for showing up. Because, it takes a lot to climb on a bus, to hop in a car, to show up to a field house for 72 hours of who knows what. I know a lot of you have never come to these before, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for trusting us with your time this weekend. I have the weird privilege of, for 9 hours a week, I'm on the radio, and every Friday I wrap up a show, and I turn my microphone off, and I lean back in my chair, and I think to myself, I really hope people were listening, and how cool that maybe they were, because it's a great privilege to get to talk to people. It's a great privilege to be in front of you tonight. It's a remarkable honor to get to hopefully lead you a little bit closer to Jesus. Not something I ever thought I was going to do. I got a theology degree. I was a teacher. I was a youth minister. Jesus kept putting me in places where people kept handing me microphones, and all the teachers that used to fuss at me for talking too much, well, look who's talking now. I get paid to do it. But when I was a little kid, I was this frizzy-haired, pale child whose mother would send her to school with sunscreen. I was the nerd on the playground with the bright white nose to protect myself from the sun. And every summer from birth until 4 or 5, I would go spend a few hours every week at my grandma Rose's house. She lived on Blackman Street in Lake Charles, which is right off of Lake Street, which is right down right around the corner from the parish that we would go to, OLQH. And I loved hanging out at my grandma Rose's house for a couple of reasons. So she was older, and she was a fun grandma, but there's young, hip grandmas, let's go on adventures, and then there's let's just sit here and watch Days of Our Lives for hours and hours grandmas, and she was the latter. She was the Days of Our Lives grandma. If you don't know what Days of Our Lives is, that's okay. It's an incredibly inappropriate daytime soap opera that nobody ever dies on, and this is a very veiled reference, but I'm pretty sure Stefano is still kicking in that show, and he's been killed off multiple times. Anyway, so I would largely sit on grandma's floral couch with plastic covering, because she was a good lady who didn't want anything on her couch, and we would just watch TV, and it would rotate from KPLC's 7 Morning News to Bob Barker and The Price is Right. Every now and then we'd get some Family Feud reruns from the night before, and it was the old creepy host who would kiss everybody on the mouth, which is not legal anymore, and then we'd make it to Days of Our Lives, and I just have this vivid memory. I didn't enjoy any of this television at all. I wanted to watch Arthur or Zoom, 02134, that's what I wanted to watch. But instead, we're just watching cable access television and getting to the daytime soap opera where grandma would lean forward and pay very close attention. But I loved being in the house with her. She would give me basically any food I asked for. She had this way of reaching her arm out across the sofa, and that was your invitation to snuggle into her. And she was grandmas are soft, man. You just would snuggle into soft grandma, and she smelled like a grandma, that mix of a caramel chew and a cough drop and vanilla. For some reason there was vanilla in there. Oh man, take me back to Blackman Street at 4 years old. And I have this vivid memory. It was right around my birthday, because that morning when I showed up to her house, Dad dropped me off. My dad had this sick 80s mustache that he carried into the 90s because nobody told him to get rid of it. And he would give me this nuzzle kiss with his mustache. So he gives me the itchy nuzzle kiss, and I walk into the house, and I settle onto the couch next to caramel vanilla cough drop grandma, and we're watching the morning news, and she said, it's your birthday soon. What do you want? And there were these, have you ever seen the Skip It toys? Again, a very where you'd put they're incredibly dangerous, but you'd put I should have brought one with me and embarrassed myself, but you put your foot through a hoop, and there's this thing that sticks out from the side of it and a weight on the other end, and it was you would just I'm not going to do it, but you would just skip it. You would just spin it around and have to jump over the weight, and it would count. Height of technology in 1994. And I really wanted to skip it. So Grandma said, well, maybe today we'll go to Walmart and get a Skip It. And I had already been told no for the Skip It from Mom and Dad, but Grandma didn't know that. So I was just yeah, we should totally do that, Grandma. So we've made our plans. And so the rest of the day, I'm sitting on the couch thinking about when we're going to go to Walmart to get the Skip It. Well, like lunchtime arrives, and Grandma does her normal routine. She puts the chicken nuggets in the oven, and she tells me, I'll be right back. So the oven is on, chicken nuggets are baking, and I'm sitting in the living room, and Days of Our Lives comes on. And there was an incredibly inappropriate love scene that pops up on the TV. And so I panic, and because Grandma would always like change the channel or cover my eyes when that stuff would come on. So I pick up the remote and I start flipping and discover the wonderful world of PBS. And so I'm just sitting on the couch for who knows how long watching PBS. And see, here's what happened. I'm sitting on the couch, a few minutes passes, another few minutes passes. I start to smell something burning. I don't know where Grandma is. I realize I haven't seen her for maybe like 10 or 15 minutes, what actually ended up being like a half hour. Because my grandmother, unbeknownst to all of us, was in the early stage of Alzheimer's. And she'd walked out of the house and gone next door to see her neighbor friend and bring some tomatoes that she'd grown in her garden. She was an incredible gardener. And she'd completely forgotten that I was there. And so she'd left this 4.5-year-old sitting on the plastic-covered couch watching daytime soap operas with chicken nuggets in the oven and just moseyed next door. And it took me a few minutes to realize something was wrong. Because like you're a kid, you don't understand the passage of time, really. But you start to realize when you're unsafe. And like I could smell the burning of the chicken nuggets. And I was starting to get bored with PBS Kids. And was like missing vanilla caramel cough drop grandma pulling me close. And like I felt off. I felt unsafe. I was scared. And so I walked to the side door. She had two doors. She had a front door that opened onto the front street. She had a side door that went to the carport. And I went to the side door of the carport. I never went through that door. I'd always go through the front door. But I went to the carport door, and I opened it up, and she had a screen door because it's the South. So we all have big, giant screen doors that, like, slam against you and cut your heel up, and you die, right? And so I'm standing there in front of the screen door, and I just start crying and calling, Grandma, Grandma, getting a little louder, Grandma! A couple minutes passes, nobody comes. This is the 90s, so there's like not a cell phone in the house that I can go grab. I remember my home phone number, 474-9727, so I run to the old rotary phone that's sitting up on the counter. And if you've ever used a rotary phone, like it takes a minute. So I'm like starting to dial 474. And right as I hit the last 7 of the number, the screen door slams, and in walks Grandma. And I see the terror cross her face as she realized what has happened. And it was a twofold terror. It was the terror of I left my grandchild unattended for who knows how long with something in the oven, and the terror of realizing that she'd forgotten and had been forgetting quite a few things and had been hiding it from all of us. If I think back on the pretty charmed life that I've lived, that's the first time I think I was ever truly scared. Where like I felt that visceral in the pit of your stomach, something is wrong, I am unsafe, and I don't know what's about to happen next. Because that's fear. Fear is the absence of security. You don't know what's in the dark, so you're fearful. Something might jump out at you. You don't know what's going to happen in the future, so you're fearful of the what ifs. You don't know what that person's going to say to you, so you hold back. It's the absence of knowing. It's the absence of control. And for some reason in our society these days, there's like this obsession with fear. It's why Stranger Things is so popular, because we want the jump scare. It's why Jurassic Park went back into the horror world, because it's like, yeah, we want the big giant dinosaur that's going to bite our head off. Like, we got to stop making parks with these dinosaurs. Somebody should have figured it out by now. They get loose eventually. Like, we crave, for some reason in our society, that feeling of instability, that lack of control, because in every other part of our life we're trying to control. So we want to fantasize this fear because we don't want to admit that we're actually all probably walking around absolutely terrified. All just little kids standing at a screen door that's going to take our heels off if we don't walk fast enough, screaming for the person that's supposed to be with us, keeping us safe. When we're fearful, we have no stability. When we're fearful, we lack control. When we're afraid, there's uncertainty. And that's what the devil preys on in the garden. Did God really say to Eve? And he puts a little bit of uncertainty in her. And he starts to make her fearful. God's holding back something from me. It's fear that makes all these people in the Old Testament take matters into their own hands. Abram's promised kids, and then they never come. And so he takes matters, I'm going to get my own heir, because he's uncertain. It's all these prophets who pronounce the truth, and then all these people who are like, but it's not happening yet, God. And so they try to do their own thing because there's no stability, at least not that they can see. It's the disciples, time and time again in sacred scripture, questioning everything Jesus says because they're just not quite sure he's going to come through, even though he always does. When we are filled with fear, we are ultimately just filled with the uncertainty of what could possibly happen. And Jesus Christ sees us in that uncertainty. He sees us in that doubt. He sees us in that worry and anxiety that something's not going to happen the way that we want it to, or that we can control it to, or that we expect it to happen, or we want it to happen. And he steps into this world not because he says, okay, I'm going to make everything certain and these nice, neat little plans are going to happen exactly the way you want them to, but he steps into this world filled with people who are looking for certainty, looking for stability, looking for answers, looking for some sort of fearlessness in the face of all the fears that they carry. And he says, look at me. I can show you some stability. I can be that firm foundation. I can invite you into plans not of your own making and accord, but of my design, bigger and better than anything you could imagine for yourself. I can step into this world that will constantly plague you with questions and doubt, that will make you think less of yourself and less of the people around you, not seeing anyone's dignity and value and worth. I will step into this world and love you in all of the uncertainty about your value and worth. I will step into this world and enter into this mess that we've made so I can clean it up a bit and ultimately show you who you really are. And we hear that and we think, oh, that's great. How's it going? Jesus showed up and he did all that. We're all without fear, right? Everybody's just walking around certain with lots of stability, and nobody's crying for grandma at the screen door, and nobody's fearful of the future, and everybody's got perfect plans, and gas prices aren't as high as they are, right? Like, we're not fearful at all because he came and took care of all of it. That's a crock, right? That's just, no, that's not what happened. See, Jesus Christ showed up and he offers certainty. Jesus Christ shows up and enters into the mess. Jesus Christ shows up and says, I'm going to make everything stable. And then he goes and gets himself killed. He goes and dies. And we sit there and we look at him and we think, whoa, wait a second. I thought you were coming to fix all of this. And instead you go and stretch your arms out and get nailed to a cross and stabbed in the side, and blood and water gushes forth, and laid in a tomb. And he sits there and he goes, yeah, that's stability. And you think, well, yeah, because there's going to be a resurrection. There's going to be an empty tomb, and then there's going to be an ascension. He's like, yeah, of course. But let's stay on the cross thing for a second. See, you're fearful and you're worried that you have no certainty. You're fearful and you're worried that there's no stability. You're fearful and you're worried that there's no plan for your life. You're sitting in this doubt and this misery and this concern, and Jesus Christ doesn't just show up and sprinkle some grace dust on our lives and snap his fingers and say, no more fear. He steps into our life and he says, you want stability, you're going to find it in me, but you're going to have to trust me. You want victory, but you're going to have to trust that my victory might look like defeat at first. You want a complete, perfect, clear plan for your life, but you might have to close your eyes and grit your teeth and squeeze your hands together for just a few minutes and just let me lead you where you want to go, even though you might go kicking and screaming every single step of the way, because I didn't come to just magically fix it all. I came to sit in it all with you. I didn't come to just offer stability in this nice, neat, cookie-cutter house that you can move into and live a nice, neat, perfect little life. I came to build you a mansion, and that comes with a lot. That comes with some mistakes, and that comes with some hardship, and that comes with some hurt, and that certainly comes with some pain. Because to move from a place of instability to stability is not just to say Jesus Christ can fix it all. It's to say, I want to become fearless because I trust the Lord more than anything else. And when I trust the Lord, it means that I no longer necessarily have control in the perfect way that I want to have control. It means that I hand it to Him. It means that when I step into gardens of suffering and pain, I pray His words, not my will, but your will be done. It means that when my friends fall asleep on me, I recognize that I'm not the only one who's ever been abandoned, but His friends did it too. It means that when I walk the road to Calvary with a cross that is heavy and digging into my back, and I fall, I know that He did it 3 times. It's certainty that my fears are being met by one who has been fearful himself. They're being answered. That stability is being offered to me because He's inviting me to step into a radical trust of Him and not just some magic little fairy tale. See, that's the genius of Christianity. That it's not this nice, neat cookie cutter, do this, and this, and everything's going to be fine. Because then when everything's not fine, everybody accuses us of lying. And Jesus Christ never said it's going to look perfect. He never told you it was going to be easy. People who think that it's going to be easy just weren't reading or listening. He literally looks at His disciples and say, things will be hard. In the world you will have trouble. Some translations use the word tribulation. We need to bring that word back into our vocabulary because if there's ever been a world filled with tribulation, this is it. In the world you will have trouble. It's guaranteed that you will face instability. It's guaranteed that you will face uncertainty. It's guaranteed that you will be left on a couch with an oven on and chicken nuggets baking and grandma walks away. It's guaranteed. But take heart. Some translations have courage. Some translations, and this one's my favorite, be of good cheer. I've conquered the world. I've invited you into a place of stability that looks at the cross and the empty tomb and sees victory. I've invited you into a place where you know when you step into that garden of pain and suffering, which we all have, you're not in that garden alone. It's an acknowledgement that you're not on shaky waters by yourself, but that you walk that path, you swim those waters, you kneel in that garden sweating your blood, and He is there beside you. Perfect love casts out fear, and like Father Dave said at the very beginning of all this, that doesn't mean you're loving as hard as you can. Like you're going to turn into a diamond because you're loving so hard. But that He is loving you so perfectly that you are transformed into a person who sees instability and goes, I can handle that with Christ. Who faces uncertainty and knows He will provide me answers. Who sees this lack of plan and questions and doubts perhaps, but at the end of the day knows He's always come through before, He certainly will again. 2020 was the point, I think, that I realized my life had been as charmed as it had been. And then everything stopped. When the first speaking event canceled, I thought to myself, okay, that's fine. Like, we can totally pay our mortgage without that event, but this was my job. Then the second one canceled, and then the third one, and then all the Steubenvilles canceled for the summer, and I applied for unemployment and got denied because I was self-employed. And I kind of hit this moment where I was like, okay, all right, so we're going to dip into our savings, and Tommy's going to e-teach, and that's going to go great. So, like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. And then in May of 2020, I went in for a doctor's appointment. I was pregnant with our second child. And Left the appointment, the anatomy scan was fine, and my phone rings about 5 minutes after I pull out of the parking lot, and it's my doctor, and he says, hey, I need you to turn back around. Something wasn't right on the ultrasound, not something you want somebody to say to you on the phone. So I whip the car around, I rush back in. Remember, it's COVID, so I'm wearing my mask. My husband cannot come inside with me, and I'm about to be told who knows what. And the doctor proceeds to tell me that I have placenta previa, so things are not where they're supposed to be. So I have to come back in for steroid shots in a couple days and probably plan for some sort of a C-section at like 36 to 37 weeks. Oh, and also modified bed rest. So that was fun. And then here comes the summer of 2020, and the world seems to kind of maybe sort of be getting back to normal, whatever that means. And August arrives, and my daughter's going to start pre-K 3, and everything's going to be great, and Tommy's going to be back in the classroom. And on August the 24th, we evacuated for what turned out to be a Category 4 hurricane that destroyed my hometown. And for the next 8 weeks, while I was 9 months pregnant, we were living in a 1,600 square foot house with my 83-year-old grandfather, my 2 parents, my 3-year-old, my husband, and very pregnant and very cranky Katie. And on day 4 of our hurricane evacuation, the power had been out the whole time at my grandfather's house. And in 90-degree Louisiana hurricane swamp weather, I hit rock bottom on the bathroom floor at my grandparents' house. And I just wept. And I lost it. And I screamed to the heavens to the point where my 3-year-old came and knocked on the door. Mommy, are you okay? Do you care? All I could see was everything swirling around me. All I could see was the fear of my town being gone, of my house needing a roof, of my daughter's brand new swing set being blown into the neighbor's pool. All I could see was the fear of a life disrupted, of having another baby out of town with doctors I'd never met. All I could see was I don't know what's coming next. It's all I could see. My mom came to the bedroom where the bathroom was, and she opened the door. She picked me up off the floor, and she said, we have a plan. You and Tommy and Rose are going to go to a hotel for the night that has power and AC. I'd gone a little heat mad. and we'll figure things out tomorrow. Tommy's going to drive to Lake Charles tomorrow to check out the damage. We'll see if we can enroll Rose in a school so that she's not completely out of sorts for the next 8 weeks. So we went to the hotel that night, and it was all 3 of us in a room. Rose was playing on her tablet, watching Frozen or playing some Daniel Tiger game or something. Tommy and I are laying in the bed, trying to recalibrate, cool down, regulate our body temperatures. We've been sitting in this 90-degree heat for the past few days to figure out, okay, we need to find an OBGYN, and we need to book a roofer, and we've got all these logistical things that need to now happen, and all this uncertainty and all this fear just creeping into our hearts, and all this worry and concern that we were totally alone in all of this, despite the fact that the whole town was dealing with us, and every person we knew and loved had a house that needed a roof, and a fence that needed to be replaced, and ceilings that needed to be ripped out. And I'm laying on this bed, and my phone dings, and a text message comes through from my friend Nell. And we're writers together in this Blessed Is She community. And she said, hey, friend, I know you're going through it. I need you to make an Amazon wish list of all the baby stuff that you need. And I said, no, we're fine. Tommy's going to go back to Lake Charles and get a bunch of our stuff. It's okay. This second kid, I don't need an Amazon baby registry. And she said, the writers want to help you out. Please don't fight me on this. Just put a few things on the list. Okay, fine. So I put a few things on the list. Burp cloths, some diapers, some wipes, a couple of footy pajamas, so that Tommy didn't have to bring the whole nursery back up to Alexandria for the 8 weeks that we knew we'd be evacuated. I go to sleep that night, having sent Nell the link, didn't think anything of it. Well, unbeknownst to me, Nell had posted the link to her Facebook page and had tagged me, Katie Prejean McGrady, my personal, where my friends can see it, Facebook page, and had told the other Blessed Is She writers, hey, Katie made a small Amazon wish list, go grab something and send it to her grandfather's house so they don't have to move the nursery up here, right? I go to bed, don't think anything of it, feeling a little guilty, there's other people that are more in need. I don't need this stuff, I hope they don't go crazy on this thing. Wake up the next morning, grab my phone and open up my emails. And the way an Amazon wish list works, that it emails you every time an item is bought. And my inbox is just flooded with these notifications that all the items on the list had been purchased. And I laughed to myself and I was like, that's the girls. Like they just, moms jump in when they need to. And then I open one of them up and it's not one of the writers. It's this Jillian woman. I didn't recognize her name. So I click on the little hyperlink and it leads me to her Amazon profile. I still don't recognize this person. I'm like, this is weird. Like, was this a mistake? And then I noticed that every single item on the list had been purchased by this Jillian woman. And so I go to Facebook and I type in this woman's name and this person pops up. We were friends. I couldn't tell you from where. And she'd purchased every single item on the list. And I was confused. Like, nothing in my mind clicked that she would have somehow even seen this list, much less purchased everything on this list. So I send her a quick Facebook message. Hey, I noticed that, hi, I'm Katie. Like, I noticed you bought a bunch of stuff on this Amazon list that my friend Nell had me make, and, she tagged me on. And, I don't know if that was an accident. Like, what? And she sends me back this short novel. She proceeds to tell me, hi, my name is Jillian. You probably don't remember me. We met when we were in high school at Girls' State, which is like this leadership thing that they do where you play government for a week. That sounds like a lot of fun, right? And we had lived in the same dorm floor at Girls' State. And the first night of Girls' State, I had no memory of this. I'd walked out of my dorm room to go to the bathroom and had found her in the hall crying. And I had, stooped down and sat with her while she was homesick and scared and lonely, and just sat with her for a few minutes and helped her feel a little bit better, and she got up and she went back to her room. And 16 years later, she's scrolling Facebook, and this post pops up on her news feed that Katie Prejean McGrady and her husband and 3-year-old daughter are evacuated for Hurricane Laura, and she's made this Amazon wish list if anybody wants to help them out with stuff for the baby so they don't have to move their nursery to her grandfather's house. And she said, I remembered how kind you were to me in that moment of fear in my life, and I just wanted to give back in some small way. When the Amazon boxes started arriving, I realized just how much she'd given back to us. And then realized just how much the Lord is with us in these moments of uncertainty and doubt and instability and fear. At the moments when we feel so alone, at the moments when we feel like He's nowhere around, at the moments where we think there is no through line, at the moments where we assume He has completely and totally forgotten me, in the moments where we somehow believe that there is no firm foundation upon which I can stand, He is there. In the unexpected, He is there. In the moment of sadness, He is there. In that moment of joy, He is there. Seeing you. We've said this all weekend long. Nobody planned it for us to all say up here, the Lord sees you. He sees you. He knows you. He loves you. And He arrives. And He shows up for us. And just asks of us the same thing. To hand Him that fear. To hand Him that uncertainty, to hand Him that instability, to hand Him those plans that we so desperately want to control, and to let Him show off for a second and show us how much He's willing to show up for us. During COVID, when the whole world seemed to shut down, and there was a lot of sadness and fear and missing Jesus, and hoping that we could return to church and wondering where He is in the midst of this uncertainty and this instability. And we were all standing at proverbial scream doors screaming for our grandmother because we just felt unsafe and unstable. My pastor, the smartest priest I've ever known, came up with the craziest idea to do a Jesus parade, where every Sunday, starting after the 9 a.m. live-streamed Mass, he would load up in the back of a red pickup truck, put Jesus in the monstrance on an altar, and drive to the whole territorial area of our parish. It was amazing. And it was the most profound witness To know that Jesus Christ was coming to us in these moments of uncertainty and doubt and instability, that Jesus Christ would come meet us in our front yard. And the first couple weeks, it was a little weird. Like, you, set up your lawn chair. Like, what do you do? Like, we're Louisianians, so we expect beads and candy to be thrown at us when a parade comes by. But, you can't scream, "Throw me something, mister," to the Lord. So you just have to, kind of sit there reverently as Jesus drives by. But by, the third week, everybody's getting into it. They had speakers in the back, blasting "Holy God." There was a third truck added with a Fatima statue. We were rocking and rolling on the Jesus parade. And my daughter, who was not even 3 yet, loved it. Jesus is coming to visit, guys. We got to get ready. Well, there was one week where the Jesus parade got started a little bit later than normal. And so she had to go to bed before Jesus. It would take 9 hours for him to go through the whole territorial area. This dude was very committed. And so this one particular week, that got started a little later, and so she had to go to bed before Jesus drove by. And she woke up the next morning despondent because she thought Jesus had forgotten her. And she was so scared that Jesus was never coming back. And for a 2.5-year-old to not know whether or not the Lord was returning. So the next week, I texted the flock note, and I was like, "Please arrive before 7 p.m. That is when my child goes to bed, and she has got to see Jesus in the back of the red pickup truck." It never went. I don't think you're supposed to text that number. It never went replied to. But I did. I tried to do my due diligence. And that evening, when Jesus turned down the street, you could feel the uncertainty lift from her little heart. You could see the stability return. You knew that she was no longer scared Jesus wasn't going to show up because the Lord had arrived. And I took a quick little video of it, if we want to.
He's coming.
Jesus!
Is that Jesus?
Yeah, Mama.
Say hi, Jesus.
Hi, Jesus!
Come on. Like Jesus is her pet. Come on, Jesus, come on. Come on, boy. Come show me your love. I'm ready. I'm your child. Set me free. In this space tonight, all of us are sitting in rooms, are sitting in houses, are sitting in darkness, are sitting in fear, are sitting in a place where we don't quite know what's next. We don't quite know what's coming. We don't quite know what he has in store for us, and we so desperately want to know. We so desperately want control. And I would just invite you to have the faith of a 2.5-year-old waiting for the Jesus parade and say, "Come on. Hey, Jesus, come on. Break open my heart. Come on. Show me the firm foundation that I can stand upon. Show me what it's like to keep my eyes fixed on you. Show me what it means to dive deeper with you. Show me what it means to ask for healing. Show me what it means to let you see me. Show me what it means to give it all to you and trust." Because I'd bet my bottom dollar that something amazing could happen if we just let ourselves give our fears to him